Hey everyone, welcome to Sunny Commutes, a podcast where I combine the worlds of web development and business and share my experiences. This is podcast episode 68, where I'll be providing my thoughts on copying and pasting code. Now, Elon Musk was actually supposed to join me on this episode, but he did cancel at the last minute. It's alright though, this is a pretty interesting topic, so I'm going to be flying solo on this one. And first, let me go ahead and explain what I mean by copying code. So as a developer, I obviously don't have all the solutions to every problem out there. There's some code, of course, that I'm able to write from scratch, but I don't have, all the answers in my head. And so, of course, I'm going to Google certain problems that I'm having. And basically what I'm going to be looking for is sometimes just code that someone else wrote that solves my problem, and I'm able to just copy and paste that into my own project and keep on rolling, get along with my project and get things working. Now, is this the right thing to do? Should you be copying and pasting code? There's even like this misconception that I'm going to dive into right now, and that is that you're not a real quote unquote developer if you copy and paste code. So you're not a real developer if you copy and paste code. That's definitely a misconception, because first of all, anyone that says you're not a real developer, I feel like they just have, they're just unsure of themselves as a developer. And so they have to put other developers down saying, you're not a real developer if you don't use this programming language, or if you don't know this or that, or if you copy and paste code in this example. And this is just to bring themselves up, and for themselves to think like, oh, I'm a good developer, because I'm telling everyone else that they're not real developers because they're not doing things this way. This is a huge misconception. I hate this argument that other developers provide with this whole real developer debate. Everyone, I think, is a real developer if you're building apps, you're building projects. If you have a job and you've been writing code there for a few months or whatever, then you're a real developer. There's nothing, everyone's constantly learning. Not everyone knows everything, and there's no single way of solving a problem, of doing the same thing. So I don't really like that argument, but I do have a couple of other thoughts on this. So first of all, there's no need to prove to anyone that you know how to code except during an interview, right? If you're building apps, you're at a job, you're working on projects, you're already there. You're not trying to interview anyone. Maybe you're trying to impress someone, and that's fine. But again, you're really not trying to prove to anyone your capabilities as a developer. It's good to constantly keep on learning, but unless it's an interview, you don't need to prove to anyone that you know how to code. So let's just get that right out of the way. The second thing is copying code is just really being efficient at your job. So imagine, put yourself in the shoes of a project manager, or just a manager in general, someone potentially not technically savvy, they don't know any code. And if one of the developers on their team, completes a project and they got done in, less amount of time than you expected to, would you really care if they copied code or not? Outside of legal issues, which we'll get into in a bit, there's really no issue with this. You're just being efficient because you're, not reinventing the wheel, and you're just using code that already exists out there. There's no reason for you to, write code from scratch. There might be some reasons, honestly, but for the most part, if code exists to solve certain small problems and you just copy and paste that code, you're just being efficient. You're not rewriting, you're not reinventing the wheel, and you're just using your time just really more efficiently. So I think this is fine in terms of just trying to be efficient. You should copy code, I think, and there's a right way to do it. Again, I'll get into that. But the third thing here is there's communities and tools out there. So there's Stack Overflow, and then there's open source services like GitHub that pretty much they want you to share code with other developers, right? So if I'm searching for a problem on Stack Overflow, then some other developer has the ability to share their code, their solution with me if they had the same problem, or they have a solution, so they're just going to share that code with you. And this is huge, and this is like something that exists. Like, you're supposed to do this. You're being social, and you're just helping other developers by sharing code. So this is something that, especially in open source, is very much encouraged. So I think that's like a huge point. And then finally, the code should still be clean and adhere to your project standards. So this kind of dives into the tip that I want to provide, which is refactor the code that you copy and paste. So what I mean by this is, if you come across code that you're going to copy, it's fine to copy and paste that, but then soon after, what I want you to do is just go line by line and review the code. So make sure that you understand what you're actually pasting into your code base, because this is going to cause, if you don't do this, this is going to cause maintainability issues in the future, because throughout your code base, you're going to have these copied and pasted code blocks that you have no idea what they're doing or how they're working. And if you ever want to change that code, you're pretty much going to want to go back to the Stack Overflow post that you found, and then see, maybe even go to that developer and try to ask them how that code works, right? And so why not just take the time to understand the code that you're copying, and then refactor it so that it's more easily understood. And this also goes into the standards of your project. So if you have some rules about how your code should look and function, then and you probably have like some linting tools here as well, like ESLint, for example, that you will want to fix in terms of linting errors and making sure that the code looks clean from like a formatting perspective and code quality perspective. But then also make sure that the code is understandable too. So just again, go line by line and make sure that if the code needs to be changed, change it to your liking or to your understanding. And then just make sure that that entire code, it makes sense and it fits into your code. It's like integrated rather than just this random piece of code that doesn't look like it belongs into your code base. So what this does for you is refactoring cleans up the code to integrate better with your code base. So you're not just copying and pasting, but you're integrating that code. The second thing is refactoring helps you understand the code better line by line. And so this is where I'm talking about, like, just go line by line, making sure that you understand every single piece of it. And then this keeps code maintainable for other developers, or in most cases, if you're just working on that project alone, it's going to be for your future self to make sure that if you come back into that project later, you're going to be able to understand the code. If you need to change anything, if there's a bug or an issue with it, you're going to be able to dive in and fix it with confidence that you're not breaking anything. So essentially, one, copying and pasting code is fine. There's open source communities. There's no need for you to prove to anyone that that you're a developer, and so copying code is perfectly fine. And then when you do copy and paste code, what I want you to make sure is that you're refactoring the code so it fits into your project better, your code base looks consistent, and everything's all maintainable in the future. So yeah, those are pretty much my concluding thoughts on copying and pasting code. Let me know what you think, because I think this is something that, if you're a developer, like, you probably do copy and paste code. I think we all do. But two, there's probably some thoughts that you have on it in terms of seeing other developers copying and paste code, because we've all come across code and you're like, does this belong here? This is really weird. So this is definitely something that, if you're on a team, making sure that everyone is aware of making sure to refactor the code that they copy, and making sure that they understand it too. In relation to legal issues, so obviously you're not going to want to copy code that is like copyrighted or proprietary or something like that. But this is where, again, sites like Stack Overflow, GitHub, anything open source related, or libraries, there's typically the MIT license, and that pretty much says that you're free to use this code commercially or not, and there might be some limitations, but for the most part, you can just copy and paste that code without even giving credit or anything like that. So so pretty much, for the most part, you're fine in doing this from a legal perspective. And it's definitely, I think, encouraged, especially in the open source community. All right, thanks for listening. You can find all the show notes and your related links to this episode on the website, sunnycommutes.fm, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.